Now let's learn blanket stitch. Blanket stitch is another great stitch for stitching your wool to your background. And it's really fun because it is a little bit decorative. So the stitches are a little bit bigger so you can see the stitch, but they also create this little like outline that goes around the edges of your project, which is a fun little decorative add to the project. So to do a blanket stitch, you're going to bring your needle up on the edge of the wool. Now you don't want it to be tucked under. This is not something that you really want to hide like you would with like an applique stitch. You want to bring it right on the edge like this, because if it's too tucked under, then the stitches are going to tuck and hide underneath the wool and you won't get that really pretty outline. So you can see here that I've put it right on the edge of the wool. When I bring it up, I'm going to bring it to my left. And then I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch over and 1/4 of an inch down, actually a little bit less. And then I'm going to bring it back up. This time I want to be making a perpendicular line like I did with the whip stitch. So this needle is perpendicular to the edge of my wool. My string, my thread, is behind my needle so that when I pull my needle through, it catches it and creates that L shape. That L shape is what you want. So again, I'm going to go a little less than 1/4 over, a little less than 1/4 in. I'm going to scoop it so that it's perpendicular. And again, I don't want it tucked underneath, so I do have it on the outside just a little bit. My thread is behind, and when I pull it through, it catches my thread in an L. So I'm always keeping my thread to the left, and I might be just a tad too far away trying to demo this. Now what happens if I go to do this and I forget to put my thread behind? And I've already pulled it through. And I'm like, oh no, it's not going to catch. No big deal. Just grab that thread with your needle and then you can pull. So with this stitch, that's what you do. You just keep going around. Now the hardest thing about blanket stitch is trying to make all of your stitches even. Because not only do you have to have these stitches coming in the same, you have to have them being equal distant apart all the way around. The best way to do this is just practice. Like the whip stitch, you will start to find your groove. You'll start to find what works for you, what you just kind of automatically do over and over and over. But there may be times when you do a stitch and you're like, oh my gosh, that one is totally in the wrong place, and you rip it out and just redo it again. I do it all the time. I'm constantly doing stitches, even with my whip stitch, and going, oop, that one didn't quite work, and undoing it and just trying again. I'm gonna do this little curve so you can kind of see how a curve would work. Some people, I know some people do like this mark on their thumb, but you can see the way I hold my wool that doesn't really work for me. There is a way to do blanket stitch where you go the other direction. That's not how I do it. I'm sure that there are videos that will show if this feels kind of weird to you, but I've always moved my stitches from my right to my left. And I'm going to keep going because I want you to see what to do when you get to a curve. Fortunately, our little project doesn't have a lot of curves. Like the pumpkin's just one big curve. Now you can see how far under I have that. I don't want it to be that far under. So you can see when I came to the corner how my inside stitches are touching, but my outside stitches have the space between them. That's usually what you have to do. Now this one's going to be a little bit weird. It's going to be a little bit longer. All right. So when you get to the end of the blanket stitch, what you're going to do is you're just going to take your thread and basically put it, like there's where my thread's coming up. I'm going to put my thread needle down kind of right next to it and then pull through, and basically it's a locking stitch and it'll lock that little piece in place, and that's how you'll finish it. When I get finished going all the way around, or if I run out of thread, I tack my needles by just bringing them through the back. I make sure I don't go through both sides, and then I do like a little knot, and that holds my thread in place. And there you go. That is blanket stitch.